Great seeing you here again. My name is Luc de Koster, founder of the Koster Academy. We're talking about the PMBOK 7. We're introducing the PMBOK and we are discussing the different performance domains. In this video, I will talk about the project work performance domain, and we are looking at processes, constraints, team focus, communications, and physical resources. But before we continue, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. So let's have a look at the different elements. The first is about the project processes. When we look at processes, we will create processes and we will manage them. Of course, we have to review the processes to ensure that they are performing as intended and that people are using them correctly. And we also have to identify improvements. Processes will be executed the way they are, but it doesn't mean that we cannot change them. We can find improvements, we can implement those improvements in the processes, and from that moment on we will be using the new process. When we look at the processes, and we also know this from operations management, it's very important to identify the different bottlenecks. Bottlenecks are places where the capacity is reduced, and we have to find out what can we do about those bottlenecks. We have to ensure that the bottlenecks are elevated, that we manage them, that we understand where they are, and there is a theory about this, the theory of constraints, which describes perfectly how we have to work with bottlenecks. We also have the impediments that are blocking progress. We have to find out what is blocking us, what is stopping us from performing the processes properly. And of course, we have to eliminate those impediments. When we look at processes, it's important to tailor the processes to the actual project needs. Some processes may be very complicated and are perfect in managing very large projects, but in smaller projects, we may have to tailor those processes. We will have a leaner version of the process. We will not do all of the steps, It also can be that we will just not do the process because it's too complicated, too expensive for the actual project we're working on. Another element is about lean. We know lean production from Toyota. It's part of the Kaizen methodology, which was created by Toyota, and we also know this as the Toyota production system. Remember that Toyota became very famous when their little cars, their cheap Toyota cars, reached the Western markets, and people noticed that they were of high quality compared to the other car makers. And from that moment on, Toyota has set an example, and from that moment on, we also started using Kaizen in different industries and different processes, and also in project management. When we look at one of the important elements of the lean management is what we call value stream mapping. We are looking at all the activities we have, and we are identifying the elements or the activities that are adding value. We also identify the activities which do not add value, and we take them out, we remove them from the different processes, or we try to reduce the non-value added processes or adding processes and activities related to the value adding activities. The more value we create, the better it is, and non-value adding activities, they only create cost, they don't add value, and in some cases they can even increase quality issues and different risks on the project. So it's very important to look at what we call value stream mapping. Here we want to remove the waste from the project, we want to remove the efficiency. Those non-value added activities are basically sources of waste, and we have to get that waste out of the project. Now, when we look at waste in general, we can look at different When we look at waste in general, we can look at different inefficiencies. We can look at work in progress. That's a way of one of the possible waste. We can look at movement. We can define basically what waste is about for our specific case, and we try to eliminate the waste from the project and the processes. We also do retrospectives and lessons learned. We have to see what's happening. We get information on this meeting, how the project and the work is completed. We want to see what is happening with the project. Are we doing it properly? Is the customer happy? Are we happy about what we have been doing? So these are very important steps. The retrospectives give us an evaluation of the work that we have done. And also during this evaluation, during the retrospective, we will find out that we learned some lessons that we want to share with other people. When we look at the retrospectives and the lessons learned, both of them provide us with information about what went wrong and what went bad in the project. Both of them will provide us clues how we can improve our project work, our processes. Retrospectives and lessons learned sessions are very important to gain that additional knowledge to improve the way that we are working. Another element that we have to consider is answering the question, where is the next best funding spent? Where will be or what will be doing with our money? We want to optimize the project, and one of the elements here, or what we want to find out here, is how should we continue with the project? How can we improve the project? What is the best way to continue? Now, will we continue with a task that we are doing? We find out, is that task still valid? Or will we select another task? So these are elements that we have to evaluate. We can remove tasks in case we find that they are not being efficient for what we are doing. Another element here is the efficiency of creating value. We want to see where we have to invest to have the highest efficiency possible for creating value. We also may find competing constraints, and we have to find ways how to balance these competing constraints. When we look at the different constraints that work on the project, that apply to the project, we have to understand how they influence the project management. Those constraints, even competing constraints, will have an effect on the way we manage the project. What are the typical constraints? Well, we can talk about delivery dates, we can talk about the budget, we can talk about quality policies, and so on. So there are a lot of constraints we can identify when we're working on a project. Now, these constraints can change over the lifespan of the project. It's very important to evaluate what the constraints are. Are they still valid? What is happening? How are the constraints still influencing the project? When we look at constraints, we have to see how we can balance the different constraints, because we want to keep the stakeholders satisfied. We may have, for example, a reduction in budget. Somebody decided to reduce the budget, and that can have an effect on quality standards. When we have less money, we have less money to do things, and those may lead to relaxing quality standards. We also have to maintain project team focus. We have to keep on watching the team. We have to manage the team. We have to lead them towards project success. And this is a continuous activity of the project manager. It's important to keep the balance so that the people work in the most optimal way and they keep on delivering value and realizing the expected outcome of the project. We have to keep the team on focus. The team has to be concentrated on the project. They have to understand what the project is about. And of course, they have to concentrate on the way they do their work. We have to optimize the value creation. When we look at project communication and engagement, we keep the team focused and engaged. And of course, communication with the team and with all the people around, the stakeholders, is of key importance. We look at communication in different ways. We talk about formal and informal. communication methods. We can look at verbal, non-verbal communication, or written communication. There are different elements that we can consider, and communication is more about the tools we're going to use. What are we going to do? What format are we going to use to communicate with the different people? It's also very important that we share the relevant information with the relevant people. Now, when we look at communication, we can use presentations, we can have reposting of information, we can have requests for information, and so on. There are a lot of possibilities that we can use to communicate with the people who are engaged in the project. Physical resources is also a very important element. What do we do with the physical resources? When we look at projects may need materials and supplies that are being delivered from third parties. Here we have the procurement. For example, in AT&T, we got certain supplies from suppliers, routers, telephone lines, certain equipment that we needed, and we have to manage those physical resources. We need them when we need them in the project. We have to manage them properly. When we look at the objectives from a physical resources point of view, we can say that we have to reduce or eliminate material handling on site. Material handling is not a value-added activity. We have to avoid that. Moving around certain elements, we may lose them, we may damage them, and so on. Another element is to eliminate times or wait times for materials. We can refer to this as just in time. We need to have that information or that resource when we need it. We don't have to have them in stock for so many cases. Stock is money that is in fact blocked in the company, and we just in time, we just have the elements that we need with a small reserve, and we refill the stock every time we use those resources. Optimizing the wait times for materials will improve the project performance. We minimize waste and scrap, so we want to reduce things that go wrong. We don't want to destroy elements. We don't want to create elements which are not compliant with the quality standards, because we may have to scrap them. It's waste because we have to rework on them. We have to minimize waste and scrap. We have to ensure a safe working environment. It's very important when we are working in certain conditions that the working environment should be safe. Certainly when we are working on construction projects and things like that, safety can be a very important issue in certain cases, and we have to ensure that the people don't get hurt, that there are no accidents. A safe working environment is very important. So that was it for this video. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next videos. Bye bye.